Welcome to the Keto Power Podcast. I'm Claude, your coach, here to help. Before we get going, I just want you to notice we've got our holiday sale on in December. So all of December 2020, you can bring a friend for free. And whichever product you purchase, you can both show up for coaching and consulting all through the month. If you purchase several months at a time, that'll be included as well. Just give us a call and get all the details. All right. Now we're going to get going. We're just going to go back to basics here and explain to you what is keto and some of the benefits that you can expect from doing a ketogenic diet, intermittent fasting, and adjusting your daily exercise or physical activity as well. Okay. So what is keto? So for me, the best way to understand what keto is, it starts by knowing that you've got two fuel systems in your body. But most people doing a normal standard North American diet, or even what most people consider eating healthy, um, unless you're doing an ancestral diet, which is basically what hunter-gatherers would eat, chances are you're not using your ketogenic fuel system. So you've got the glycolytic and ketogenic fuel system. Most people only have available the glycolytic system, which means they only are in a state where they convert carbs into glucose and fuel their cells with it. Okay. And that's fine. Cells do run on glucose for sure. As a matter of fact, all your body cells run on glucose, can run on glucose. Not all your body cells can actually run on ketones. Okay. Blood cells can't run, red blood cells can't run on ketones. But aside from that, most cells actually run better on ketones than on glucose. And if you purchase some coaching with us, we can get into the full details as to why and the details of that. So two fuel source, when you're born, you actually use these interchangeably. Okay. So if you test a young baby to see if they're producing ketones, you'll detect ketones. All right. What happens is if you, like anything, if you don't use it, you lose it. So with feeding babies and children constantly on cereals and sugar, and even you look at a lot of these healthy snacks, those low fat yogurts and um, you know snack bars and all that, that's mostly all glucose and sugar and carbs, right? So if you don't use your ketogenic system, you basically start to lose it. So as you get older, and by the time you get to be my age, I'm 50, and you've eaten that way all your life, you basically are almost incapable of producing ketones until you change back your diet and do intermittent fasting. Okay. So if you were to run out of food, for example, and most of us have, a surplus of body fat, if you were going to stop eating at one point because food runs out or whatever, then you would convert back to producing ketones as you burn your body fat. But that transition would be pretty hard because that energy system has been atrophied from not being used. It's like anything. If you hadn't, if you'd been bedridden for a number of years and then you go to the gym and try to work out, it would be pretty much excruciating, right? So what we try to do with the ketogenic diet is that we try to retrain your body to use both systems. Okay, we're not going to eliminate the glycolytic system. You're still going to use glucose, but you're going to use them sparingly. So typically, for example, when I go mountain biking, if I go up a steep hill and I really push, then my liver is going to actually break down my proteins and fats and create the glucose I need to do that extra push, because the glucose will give you a lot of power for a short amount of time. However, as I get to the flats and I start to recuperate and I rest and I slow down my pace, then I go back to burning more ketones proportionally. Okay. And then when I'm at rest, I'm mainly burning ketones. Actually, when I say burning ketones, you're basically burning fat. And the time uh, of of day or night where you burn the most fat is actually while you're sleeping. And that's why we'll talk a little bit about intermittent fasting. When you're intermittent fasting, you say you have one meal a day. I like to have my meal usually kind of early afternoon, and sometimes I'll have just one meal a day. So I'll finish eating around 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock, something like that. And then I don't eat till the next day. So all evening, by the time night comes along, I'm sleeping, I'm basically burning fat in my sleep. And so that's how you maintain a good body composition, right? If you're eating all the time, then you're switching back to your glycolytic system. Your insulin is constantly being pushed up. And as soon as you push up your insulin, then that switches back to fat storing instead of fat burning. And that's, for a number of years, we were told to eat low fat and eat all the time, eat snacks, between meals and snacks, you're eating 6, 7 times a day. Your body never gets a chance to really burn your fat. And then surprise, metabolic dysfunction has gone through the roof, type 2 diabetes, obesity, with all these suggestions, healthy suggestions that we've made for people. So to get back to this, how do you use your ketogenic fuel system? Okay, so one thing you can do is change your diet. So what you're going to eat is basically you're going to drop your carbs. That means no more added sugar. That means no more grains. You can eat green vegetables, cruciferous. You basically cut out potatoes and most tubers, and you lower your amount of carbs per day to about 5% of your total caloric intake. And then you don't want to overdo it with protein. So you eat the amount of protein that you need through the day, and you basically fuel your body with fat. Now that seems strange nowadays, but when you think about it, the hunter-gatherers would hunt an animal, and one of the prize parts would be to eat that fat, eat that organ meat, and not just eat the muscle meat, right? So you'd be eating nose to tail. You wouldn't waste any of that animal, and so you'd be getting a lot of these healthy animal fats. The saturated fats are much more stable. So when you're eating animal fats, it's not like these seed oils that you even before you get them home, they're already partially oxidized just from staying on the shelf so long. And so they can cause actually a lot of damage to your cells, because that fat goes into your cells and it's partially oxidized, leads to oxidized LDL cholesterol, which is ultimately the real bad cholesterol, right? So you want to avoid having oxidized LDL. And the idea, the subject of cholesterol, we can keep completely for another podcast. If you have any questions, certainly put them below, and we'll try to find you some sources as well to help educate, because that's what we do. The other way you can develop your ketogenic fuel system is by fasting. And by fasting, I don't mean necessarily going 5-6 days without eating, simply spacing out your meals through the day. So instead of having, 3 meals and snacks, you go to 3 meals. And then once your body works up to having 3 meals and being able to do without snacks, then you can start eliminating 1 meal a day. And then if you want, you can go to a total of 1 meal a day, eat what we call OMAD, 1 meal a day schedule. Now I've done that for a number of times. I still do that a few days a week. I find for me, now that I've been on keto for a long time, I don't want to lose past a certain amount of weight. I find that if you only go to 1 meal a day, for me anyways, I find it's really hard to get enough calories. I eat till I'm really, really full. and I'm not necessarily hungry the rest of the day, but I will have a little bit of a snack instead of a meal in the evening just to cut that, because I find if you don't eat those calories, then it lowers your metabolism. That's not what we want to do. We don't want to have a low metabolism and low thyroid. We want to keep as healthy and as revved up as we can, so that we can perform really well. I love to go mountain biking. I love to go ski, backcountry skiing. And obviously, if my system is low, I save a lot of energy with a low metabolism, but it also takes away from performance. So we want to walk that line here where we're shaving some weight off, so we're not dragging extra weight around, but we also maximize our performance. And there's a way to do that. And everybody's a little different that way. And that's why a personalized coach can really come in useful. Okay. And where does this diet come from? Actually, originally it was developed in the early 1900s, and it was developed actually as a treatment for epilepsy. Okay, a lot of the kids couldn't take that had epilepsy, couldn't tolerate or medication, or the medication hadn't been tested for kids. And so one way that they found that kids on a fast wouldn't get epileptic seizures. And then so what they did is they made up this diet that mimics fasting. Okay, so basically, you obviously fasting is good, but you can't just stop eating forever, right? So sooner or later you have to eat again. And what they do is that by having a diet that's really, really low in carbs and feeding your body with fats instead of carbohydrates and sugar, they found that they can mimic that state of fasting without obviously reducing the calories, so that it's sustainable long term. And this is one of the beautiful things about the ketogenic diet, is that when you get on this diet, compared to what's conceived as of traditionally as dieting, is where you're basically sort of starving yourself, right? You want to what traditionally people tell you in the dieting world is that you want to spend more calories than you take in. Well, if you're doing that, you're basically starving your body. Okay, you're basically in calorie deficiency. You're deficient in calorie. Now, you can do that for a while, but sooner or later you get these craving. And what happens, like I was saying with caloric deficiency, is that it lowers your body metabolism, where even if you're maintaining your diet and you're being super strict and not cheating, your body actually revs down to where you no longer have that caloric deficiency. And then you stop losing the weight. And so then you have to get even stricter, and you're constantly starving. And so it's not sustainable. And these, low calorie, high workout diets, have, in the long term, they typically end up being a total failure. Okay, because you're suffering every day from lack of food, which is completely ridiculous. So what we want to do with the ketogenic diet is we want you to eat until you're satiated, that you're not hungry anymore, you feel full, you feel content. But we want to train your body to use your body fat as its main fuel source. And that way you have no problem using up that body fat. And when you're using up your body fat, then you don't feel the need to eat extra. So yeah, this calorie in, calorie out, it's more complex than a simple equation, because your body is biological. It's not just a machinery where you input energy, and then you output energy. Your body adapts, and we have to know that it adapts, and change the diet accordingly. Okay, so I'm just going to flip the board over real quick. Okay, so why do people do keto? All right, so the first thing we want to do really is recover our metabolic flexibility, which means we want to be able to use those two fuel sources again, not just the glycolytic, and that allows the body to be really comfortable and use up that fat, that body fat, with ease. Okay, and that way it's easy for you to burn fat. Your body gets good at it, and so it's easy to keep the weight off, the extra weight off. And one of the major reason why the diet became so popular is because it's easy to lose fat, obviously. And you see these kind of nearly miraculous results for some people that were like severely obese, and you see them after a year or two, and wow, like they're completely changed. They've lost, I personally lost 75 pounds on it. I wasn't even doing the diet to lose weight as such. I just found it to be a really nice bonus. I'll get to why I did it next, um, but that was certainly one of the change, and I feel a lot better. And it's actually helped. My reason was joint pain, and obviously, if you lose 80 pounds, then there's a lot less stress on your joints. But some people do it to lose weight, and it works fantastic for that as well. If you feel that you don't have weight to lose, then you won't necessarily lose weight. The idea is to get your healthy body weight, or your, what I like to see is your healthy body composition. Okay, so you don't want the excess fat, you want good muscle tone, and just a healthy body, basically. Okay, joint pain is improved a lot with a ketogenic diet if it's done properly. I've got arthritis in my right hip, and the reason for that is I broke my femur when I was 10 years old, and the femur is a very big bone. I was in traction for 2 months, and then I had a cast from about here down to my toes for 8 months following that. And at 10 years old, I was going through a growth spurt. So they had to set the leg at the length that they thought it would get to when I was done the treatment and the cast, right? Because you can't keep breaking the cast and redoing a cast and changing the length of the leg. It's kind of a touchy thing. And they got it wrong. So I ended up with my broken leg being 1.25 inches longer than the other side. And I didn't know that for the longest time. I only learned that that was the case about 4 years ago when I had a lot of pain in my hip, and we took an x-ray, and then yeah, now I can't unsee it, but I do have a longer leg on that side. And the fact that I had a longer leg changed my stride. I used to do a lot of running, a lot of exercise, and it's actually worn out the cartilage on that side. Okay. Now, despite diet I've maintained since I've done the diet, I've actually improved my range of motion quite a bit, including with doing yoga and other exercises, and the diet has helped maintain it, but it hasn't regrown all that cartilage. That's just not a realistic expectations. I haven't found it to be, but what it does do is that it diminishes the inflammation quite a bit. Okay, I had so much inflammation in that hip that I could barely move my leg, and so I just limp around, and it was getting completely dysfunctional. Now on the ketogenic diet, I still go ski touring. I go mountain biking. I can do a little bit of jogging if I have to. It's not the best thing for me, mainly because my stride I still have a longer leg on one side than the other. If I get my hip replaced at one point, hopefully they set it to just the right length, and that will solve that problem. But I'm not quite there yet, and I'm actually enjoying a very active life due to this life change and this diet change. So I highly recommend it. It's made a huge difference, because if you look at myself with 80 extra pounds and an arthritic hip that could barely move, I was a very different person. I just couldn't keep up anymore, right? And it's been a life changer. In the summers, I work part-time at a tree to tree course with 20-year-olds that guide along with me, and I can keep up quite well with the 20-year-olds despite being 50. And that's when you can, you can really see the difference live in everyday, very active kind of these activities that are a little more difficult, and you wouldn't expect somebody my age to be as comfortable with, right? Um, Another reason why people might do it is epilepsy and other neurological benefits. Um, so obviously, it's still a great potential treatment for kids. So if you have a child with epilepsy, I would definitely mention it to your doctor. And not all doctors are open to the ketogenic diet, or are knowledgeable about it enough to really know what to do with that. But if you poke around, and maybe ask for second opinions. Hopefully you can find a doctor that's knowledgeable with the ketogenic diet and can recommend some treatment either by itself or in tandem with drug therapy. Also, other sorry, neurological benefits. So the brain is an energy hog. Okay, most of the energy you spend at rest is the workings of the brain. The brain, like never, just like the heart, never stops working, not till the end, anyways. And the brain uses a lot of energy, and so it'll use glucose, but it'll also use up to 75, 80% ketones if they're available. And when they run, and when the brain runs on ketones, it actually runs a lot smoother, a lot better. You get good mental clarity, better memory, um, general better performance running on ketones than on strictly on glucose. Okay, because that ketone gives that base energy, and the glucose just complement the rest. Obviously, if you haven't trained your ketogenic fuel source system, then your brain will be limited to running only on glucose, and it's a dirtier fuel, and it leads to more brain fog. And because it's much more insulin dependent, then you get highs and lows depending when you've eaten last, and it can be quite a bit more difficult to function. Also, more and more there's data coming out for people with cancer, and especially brain tumors, using the ketogenic diet in tandem with um, uh, chemotherapy and other therapies for tumors have shown to have much better outcomes if you're using both together. Um, Reversing metabolic dysfunction. So anybody who's pre-diabetic, type 2 diabetic, um, cardiovascular issues, especially of the extremities, all these things, cardiovascular health tends to improve a lot when you drop the carbs right down, and you spend at least part of your day using your ketogenic fuel source. Um, Also, improved fertility. So, wanna you don't want to find that one out by accident. All right. So it's well known that running on burning fats rather than glucose is actually a huge boost to your hormone system. And because the hormones start to function so well, it also increases fertility quite a bit. So if you're wanting to conceive and having problems, you may want to inquire about improved fertility with the ketogenic diet. And also increase endurance. Okay, like I've said before, ketones are a fuel that burn much cleaner. Metabolically, they're much easier to they cause less toxins, so you have to breathe a lot less for the amount of energy that you're expending. So for cardiovascular endurance and even muscular endurance, your muscles and your overall cells in your body will function a lot better on ketones than they do on glucose. And so you recuperate a lot better after an effort. And that leads, if you're doing these longer endurance kind of activities, it's excellent. And if you've been doing the ketogenic diet for a long time, your body also adapts. So it spares your glycolytic system for when you have to do that push. So initially, when you transfer to the ketogenic diet, often it's very typical for people to find that their kind of their maximum output is a little bit lower. Okay. And I've certainly witnessed that for myself. However, with time, your body readapts. And so you regain that capacity for, maximum push, but you do it in a context where you have all the endurance as well, backing that up, and all that capacity to recuperate. So two working hand in hand works really, really well for performance, for endurance sports, martial arts, mountain biking, marathon running, and these things. Okay, mountaineering. Um, so these are some of the benefits. This isn't even a complete list, but hopefully it's a little bit enlightening. If you're curious about all that, we do offer free consultations to see if keto is right for you. It'd be a pleasure. We've got a reservation calendar, and we've got room right now. So get on the line before it all books up, and we'll see you in the next podcast. All right. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to click subscribe and ring that bell there so you don't miss an episode. Have a great day.